Remind me a little bit. You kind of started to tell me last time when we had our preliminary meeting, I guess. You kind of told me a little bit about how you started your business. You kind of started to tell that story. And I'd love to hear more of that.
Yeah. So rewind a minute. I was a youth pastor. I went to youth ministry in the local church back in good grief, 1999. Well, no, 1998. Like the week after I graduated high school, did an internship and anyway. So get married in 2001, then 2004 we have our first kid, and by 2012 we've got 4 biological kids. We adopted a 5th kid, and they're expensive. And I'm in youth ministry, and my wife's staying home with kiddos, and so youth pastor salary was just not enough for 5 kids and a wife to stay at home. And both my degree, I had a bachelor's degree in biblical studies and then an MDiv from New Orleans Seminary. And so there's not a whole lot else you're doing with those degrees to make money. And so at that point, what I did know was my way around social media, just from working with teenagers and being an early adopter, because it was free and it was a way to get the word out. And I was looking for free stuff. So I was like, one thing that had happened is my wife was always on the lookout for coupons, whether it was like restaurants, or the one I remember was this bounce house place. And she was driving like 40 minutes to this bounce house place because every Tuesday they would post a coupon, like a buy one, get one free, terrific Tuesday kind of thing on Facebook. Now, there was a bounce house place 10 minutes from our house. And I was like, why don't you just go to that one? She's like, because I can't find a coupon. So they were the first ones on my list. I was like, well, I'm gonna go to these businesses that have a Facebook page that aren't doing anything with it, because a lot of these people in businesses in 15 years ago, 14 years ago, or whatever the math is, 13 years ago, they started a page because that's what every business did and that's what they thought they were supposed to do, but they were scared of it or didn't know what to do, didn't want to post, didn't have time for it, whatever. So I just started looking around in our town for all these businesses that had Facebook pages but hadn't posted in like 6 months. And I made a list, and there ended up being like 25 or so of them. And so I came up with a name, Social Sphere Media, and got our worship pastor made me a logo because he was good at Photoshop. And I got that embroidered on a T-shirt and got some business cards made and just started knocking on doors saying, hey, notice you haven't posted on social media, but you've got a page. So is it just something you're not interested in? And all of them, they were like, yeah, we just don't have time for it. I'm not really sure what to post. I don't know what to do. I'm a little scared of it. I was like, well, hey, $300 a month, I'll post 3 times a week for you. And over the course of 2 weeks, 3 of them said yes, which for a broke youth pastor, $900 a month, what is that, a $10,000 a year raise?
Yeah.
Over the course of 2 weeks was like, that's pretty life-changing, man.
Yeah.
And then I lucked up because one of the ones that said yes was a pretty kind of a big shot in town, and he started opening more businesses. And then all these people saw his social media, and they just said, "Hey, if you're good enough for him, you're good enough for me." So people were just hiring, and it's a small town, so I was kind of the only guy in town. So people started assuming I knew how to build websites, which I didn't, but they were offering me money. So I figured it out. And then I built all these websites, and they're calling me saying, hey, you built me a website. Now I need to show up at the top of Google. Can you help me with that? I'm like, well, let me figure that out. So started learning SEO and Google ads. And so by 2018, I had replaced my youth pastor salary with the side hustle. And so in 2019, I went part-time at the church, and we hired an intern to start working on replacing me. And then in January of 2020, we decided with me and the leadership of the church, we're like, hey, let's make March 30th, 2020, my last day on staff. We'll announce it March 11th to the youth group. And then I'll have 2 more weeks with them because there's not going to be a pandemic or anything. So we'll have 2 more weeks to kind of wind things down. And I announced it on Wednesday night, March 11th, that I was stepping down and going to go do this marketing stuff full time. And that was the night they canceled March Madness. And I was like, oh man,
That's a horrible day.
COVID,
That was a horrible day.
Yes. We were like, COVID's going to be this. Okay. I thought this was not a big deal, but this is a big deal.
Yeah.
And, yeah, my 40th birthday was Friday, March 13th, 2020. And that was the last time we ate at a restaurant for months. And
Friday the 13th. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a legit bad day in Georgia. So, anyway, yeah, man, since March 11th, 2020, been doing this full time. And now it wasn't at that point, I was taking anybody who would pay me, plumbers, roofers, lawyers,
sure.
You name it, funeral homes, whatever. And I've tried a few different niches and then just kind of landed going back to my roots and scratching my ministry itch and taking what I did for all these businesses and just picking it up, setting it down on the church world for a lot less profit.
Yeah. Well, man, so much there. So I got to ask, I'm one of these guys. I don't like dwelling on COVID, like I don't like thinking about it, like whatever. It was already got way too much press. Right. But I do got to ask, with you kind of stepping out and taking the kind of the full leap into full time during COVID, did COVID help or hurt? Or was it about the same? I mean, it's a digital type of business. So, and obviously social media was super important during COVID, but how did that affect I'm just curious.
Yeah. Well, at first it was scary because I was like, oh my gosh, I still have 5 kids and, I just gave up this, at least it was a secure job at the church. And there were benefits and all this stuff. And now, dang, I was 40 years old, changing careers with 5 kids and a mortgage and a wife. And so I was like, Lord, what have I done? But yeah, and I don't want to, I guess we're going to look for positives in COVID, at least in my case. Everybody that was probably the year that, if you look back at the last 5 years, most of our biggest growth year was 2020. Now at that time, again, we were a generalist agency. We hadn't niched down or anything. But I would say the biggest change that did help, and it certainly did help, was that all the guys and all the girls, all the business owners who had been referral only, had been putting out flyers and the old, I'm in Georgia. So, the old country HVAC guy or electrician who's like, I don't need no website. That's, those guys, even those guys were calling like, hey, I need a website. I don't even know what is a website, and they're like, is it more than $20? And I'm like, yeah. So they had no clue, but they knew they needed it. So everybody needed to be online. Everybody needed social media. So yeah, it kind of blew up for us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, I could see that going either way. And I think in general, again, not to give it any more reflection than it needs, but in general, back then it was like you had to pivot. Doesn't matter what industry you're in, you had to be willing to make adjustments. Because I'm relating the same thing. Like for the most part, since I started, I've helped a few small businesses here and there, but church world, it's kind of like you said, similar. It's like really all I knew. And so I, in my case, I was helping mostly churches and, it's amazing how in 2020, it took a worldwide pandemic for many churches to finally be like, oh yeah, I should be online. I should use digital, means to reach people. So it's amazing how it just woke kind of everybody up. So I guess if there are positives, maybe it's that. It was a wild time for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think, the like online giving became, I know the guys over at Tithely, I mean, they said before COVID, I think they probably had 8,000 or 9,000 churches. And then in about 3 months, they grew to like 30,000 churches.
Wow.
Because they were one of the first ones you could just sign up and start taking donations. You didn't have to jump through as many hoops with them.
Yeah.
And so, and even with our generalist clients, I only had one client out of like 30 that had to pause, and he only paused for like a month. Once the PPP came out, he was right back. But and because if like with home services, what we were dealing with, home services and mechanics and stuff like that, man, everybody was at home getting the toilet fixed that they'd been putting off, but now they're sitting home doing all these, calling the plumbers and getting the car fixed because they had the time. They weren't driving to work. So again, we didn't really take a hit.
Yeah. Well, and in my case, I remember I was in a position, I don't, now, at least for me, I mean, I've always been kind of a small business solopreneur, but at that time I had a couple guys working for me, full-time employees. And, but, and I'm sure we could really just spend some time reminiscing on the mistakes we've made in business along the way. But one of mine certainly was hiring entirely too fast and really hiring when I didn't need it. And there was just something for me about a whole, like, I don't know, some type of status that I felt like, oh, I've got employees now. I'm a legit business, And so all that to say, I had a couple guys, great guys, good at what they did. A guy who focused in on the graphics, another guy who focused in on the video and production side of things. But just to be honest, leading into COVID, my profit margins were slim to the point to where almost every payroll I was hitting the point where I wasn't able to pay myself. And all my profit was going to, the guys I'd hired, and I wasn't even paying them great, and so all that to say, COVID comes along and it gives me a glorious excuse to say, guys, I'm sorry. It's time to part ways. You get it. Worldwide pandemic. Oh, well. And they said, oh, yeah, we get it. And, to get in all those guys, they weren't getting paid well. It was like they were ready. I gave them all these false promises that they'd get raises, and I wasn't able to fulfill them. So all that to say, yeah, I mean, the benefit of COVID or a world crisis like that is, hey, it gives everybody the opportunity to reset, to rethink things, and in a way to bring it back to present day. And before we hit record here, we didn't necessarily decide a path to take for our conversation here, but I'm gonna just jump straight into kind of the latest, I feel like, revolution we're in, and I'm very curious how it's affecting you. But that's everything with AI now. AI, I feel like in just the past couple years really has taken massive leaps, because the thing I always remind people is like AI, it's always existed, right? I mean, I say always. Artificial intelligence in one way or another has been out there for a decade or more. Siri's an early example of AI, and Alexa, and even just, we could talk about, I mean, to some degree, autocorrect is a version of AI. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's been there, but the dominance of these large language models with ChatGPT and whatnot, and then all the video and image generation rather, and things like that. How are you seeing that? Well, first of all, how are you using it, and how's that affecting your business, and what adjustments are you having to start making?
Yeah, that's a biggie. I think we're probably like everybody else. We could be using it more effectively. It's injected into a few things here and there, kind of inspiration for some ads, helping us write SOPs and stuff. I keep reading these studies about how much dumber it's making us. And so I'm a little hesitant to rely on it too much. And I'm probably a little bit resistant to it. I'll say what it's affecting. And we do a lot of search engine optimization. And so I think the biggest thing that it's affecting for our clients is that, if you Google something and it's not just doctor near me, but if you ask a question like, who's the best plumber in my area? And so we've noticed, and there's been studies done, that if the question is more complex, about 60% of the time it's triggering the AI overview inside of Google. And so a lot of times when, in my world, the goal has been always get your local clients, because we work with local churches, or we were working with local businesses. They need to show up in the top 3 of the map pack on Google, the little area where the maps are. If you're looking for like restaurant near me, or plumber near me. That's where you wanted to be. Well, now the problem is that not only have you got ads, you've got local service ads at the top, then you've got the traditional pay-per-click ads below that. But then you've got this big section of AI overview answering the questions. And I mean, I was talking with my wife about it the other day. She doesn't, a lot of times she gets that and then she's done. She's not, because all of those AI overviews link to a website, but she's not even going to that website if she's getting the answers she needs.
Sure. Yep.
But so what we're having to do is figure out, okay, we got to show up there. We've got to have, and now the thing is, everybody gets, as far as SEO, search engine optimization, everybody's got tricks up their sleeve and thinks that this thing is a silver bullet, this thing's a silver bullet. But the thing that's been consistent for years and years and years is good website on, or good content on your website is what wins. And when Google makes a change, if your content's good on your website, whether it's AI written or human written or a hybrid of both, if the good content's good content, and Google pulls the AI overviews from good content, and Google ranks websites with good content. Google puts websites with good content in the map pack. So we just keep doubling down on better content, revising the content on the website, and that seems to win.
Yeah. So, because I can imagine, because this stuff I've barely dabbled in. I mean, like when I build a website, I try to follow some best practices for SEO, but I've never tried to even touch Google ads and paid ads or anything like that. And so understanding all of this, how Google, I understand some of the best practices and basics of how Google indexes, but yeah, it seems to me like, so are you saying that in a way you can kind of control what the AI is going to, the result it's going to generate, or is it still just kind of random? Get what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, I'm strictly talking about the Google AI overview results.
Yes.
And so, yeah, that's definitely easier to influence than, say, getting your business to show up, in like a Chat GPT result, but now that's changing a little bit. Again, this is probably a little bit beyond me. That's changing now that, there's now Chat GPT browser and they're doing internet search. Sorry, there's not a browser, or is there? I think I heard they were developing a browser.
I thought I heard they're developing a search engine or something like that.
Yeah. So, but there's definitely a search feature if you're in the paid, if you're paying for it. So, but over on the Google side of things with their AI overviews, if you're talking about a business or a church and you want to show up at the top, then yeah, you need good content on your website that answers questions people are asking. And so that's what businesses need to be doing, is creating content on their website that actually answers questions that people are asking. And if you give a good, well thought out answer to that, and get some people pointing some links back to that, like people start sharing that content, then it'll show up at the top. For example, for FaithWorks, we created the 2025 guide to the Google ad grants for churches. And so, right now, if you search that phrase, can churches get the Google ad grant? Our guide is used in some of the AI overview. And so that links to us. It doesn't get us a ton of phone calls, but it does build some authority. It gets people to our website. And then if your website's good, then people will take a step and possibly, in our case, get us to manage their Google grant for them, which is, what we do.
Sure. Yeah. So, okay. So then, again, we're just kind of hopping all over the place here. We might come back to AI eventually at some point, who knows? But, I have heard you are one of a couple of, businesses I've run across over the years that specializes in helping with that Google ad grant. And so, like, as far as for churches and nonprofits, can you just, for my own understanding, like, walk me through a little bit how that works? I've never, again, something I don't even dare try to touch his Google ad stuff. But I am curious, how it works, because I've had pastors ask me, like, hey, what do I do? And I'm like, I don't know. So now I have a friend, Jono, and he's going to tell us about it.
Yeah, yeah. So short version or to short-ish version is there's a program called Google for Nonprofits, and if you are a 501c3, and a lot of churches are, there's a lot of churches that haven't got their own 501c3 if they're in a state like Georgia that doesn't require you to be a 501c3 to be taxed, receive charitable donations. But anyway, if the church is a 501c3, you can apply for Google nonprofit status. So it's a two-part deal. You get approved as a nonprofit. They use a third-party verifier, and they say, yep, they're a nonprofit. You submit some documents. They tell Google, hey, yeah, we verified them. Then Google will say, hey, all right, cool, you're approved for the Google for Nonprofit status. And there's a few things that you can activate. So now there's this activation process. One of those is free Google Workspace. That doesn't get talked about a lot, but if you're a church with a bunch of staff members and you're paying $8 or $9 a month, $10 a month for their email account, well, man, you could save a few $1,000s a year with that workspace. That alone, forget the ads, that alone is good enough reason to get it. Now, the thing that everybody talks, there's a couple other things you get that no one really uses. There's a YouTube feature that nobody really uses, but what everybody talks about is the grant for ads. And with, if you're basically what it is instead of putting a credit card on file as a payment account, like you would have to if you were for profit, you have an account and your payment method is the grant. And so every month you can run ads and they will let you spend up to $10,000 a month. And I have to repeat, a month, $120,000 a year.
In perpetuity, right?
Yeah. Until they kick you out for violating something, or they just stop doing it. I don't see why they would ever stop doing it. Tax write-offs is a lot of goodwill. Now the problem is everybody hears $10,000 and no one understands how Google ads work. And so everyone thinks I've got $10,000. And I think people think like maybe TV commercial or newspaper ad. So I got $10,000, give me the front page. Or I got $10,000, play my commercial every 5 minutes. That's not the way it works. In fact, Google makes it really hard for your ads to even show because they want you to work for it, because they're giving it to you for free. Now, if you were paying out of pocket, they're going to show your ads, because if they don't show them and no one clicks on them, they're not getting paid. You don't get charged, or your grant doesn't get debited until someone clicks on the ad. And so your ads for your church may only cost $4 or $5 a click. And so it's going to take a lot of clicks to spend $10,000. Most churches are never going to spend all $10,000. Most churches, if they don't hire someone, and I know this is the guy that makes a living off of running Google ad grants. Most churches, if they don't hire someone, you're going to spend $10 a month, because it's hard. In fact, I would say to anyone listening, if you are running your church's Google ads and you're spending over $7,000, call me, because we'll hire you, because no one is good.
What you're doing.
There's a handful of people. Yeah. Then you figure that out, and whatever you're doing, you're probably about to get fired from it, because you had to neglect that job to get good at the Google ads.
Yeah.
But the good news is we'll hire you, because there are very few people that are good at the Google grant for churches. There's plenty of people that do it for nonprofits, but to figure out how to make it work for churches is a totally different beast than a nonprofit that, is a humane society or a clothes closet. Church is the grant operates different than regular Google ads. The Google grant's way more like SEO. It is way more dependent on quality content on your website than you can have a crappy website and pay money for your plumbing company to show up on Google. You cannot have a crappy website and your Google ads work for the nonprofit program. And churches, sorry, I know I'm rambling on here. Churches,
no, this is all fascinating.
What we know about churches is that, and we build church websites, and anytime I ask, hey, what do you want your church website to look like? You know what everybody says? I want it clean, not cluttered, a lot of white space, very few words.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I get. We want it to look nice. And so every church has their mission statement on the homepage, and then service times and a little blurb about youth ministry, children's ministry, adult groups in the Sunday service,
Sure.
plan a visit, da, 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 da.
Yep.
And that is one. And then the other 5 navigation items link out to Planning Center. So they have like a total of 27 words on their website. And that will never work for the grant. You've got to have content on your website for the Google ad grant to work. It's way more like search engine optimization than it is like ads.
Interesting. Wow. Yeah. That, again, something I've never even tried to understand. So, so thanks for walking me through that. And I'm sure anybody listening would enjoy that as well. So yeah, it's funny how you say that. Like, yeah, I want something clean, few words, and then they just, you click out to Planning Center. That is totally how many websites, and I'm guilty of, because I'll work with churches that I've made their website, and that is what they want, and I essentially give them what they want.
Yeah, and I get, like, functionally that it makes perfect sense. I don't mean that as a critique, like, oh, they're stupid for doing that. It's practical, but if we want to show up on Google, then we've got to start thinking about words. Now, we can create, for some churches, we'll duplicate their homepage, and we'll rewrite the content on the front page all about the city that's next door to them, so that people start searching church in whatever city, that page will show up. Because remember, Google doesn't rank entire websites; they rank individual pages.
Yeah,
and they're trying to show pages that are about whatever service you offer and wherever it is, and serve that up. So there's ways to be creative with it. You just, if you're not thinking about that, if you're not some SEO nerd, then no one's thinking that way, and they shouldn't. They're not supposed to.
Yeah. So what you're talking about then is, so you're saying with the Google grant that you kind of just said this, it works a little bit more like SEO. So, because what you're talking about, whether you're using the Google grant or not, is just good practice for SEO. That's some of those best practices we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
So how does that then, I don't know, like, I'm trying to, like, how does that connect with the grant? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, how do you tell Google, like, for your paid ads, like, hey, check out my stuff over here and rank me higher?
Yeah. So what everybody usually does is they get the grant, then they go create a few ads that say, hey, come to church. And they link, and you've got to link every ad to a page on your website. So everybody links it to their homepage, and then they're done. And then 90 days later, they've spent $27 and they call us and say, hey, we don't know what we're doing. Can you help us? And that's usually, that's how it goes. You've got to get beyond just saying, hey, come to church. So for one of the things we'll do is, I'm going to use Atlanta as an example. So you've got Atlanta, but then you've got Midtown, and you got Buckhead, you got surrounding cities that people would drive from. So your homepage is going to be written all about, church in Atlanta, but you also should build a page, and it doesn't need to be in your navigation, but church in Buckhead. Think about it. If you see a well-optimized website for an auto shop, then you're going to see they're going to have a page that's all about oil changes in Atlanta, oil changes in Buckhead, oil changes in Marietta. And so you don't see all of those on their homepage. They just talk about Atlanta because that's where their address is, but they want people from these surrounding cities to come get an oil change. So you build out service area pages. And we do the same thing for churches. Now, the other thing that there's no reason that a church shouldn't be dropping the recording in of the Sunday sermon and getting it transcribed and summarized in AI, and then creating a blog post with it. And so if your sermon was on how to pray on last Sunday, go build a sermon video landing page. Embed the video, the YouTube video, or wherever you uploaded it, Vimeo, whatever. Get it transcribed, summarize it down to 500, 600 words, and then go build an ad that says how to pray. Because you know how many people are Googling, how do I pray? Is God listening? Does God hear my prayers? that, whatever, then, Google's going to ask you what keywords you want. So prayer, how to pray. Well, you can't have single keywords on Google Ad Grants. That's where they get you. It has to be
Interesting.
You can't have a single word be a keyword like you can if you were paying. And those are the things you don't know.
So it has to be like phrases.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay. Wow.
Can't be single keywords. So how do I pray? Does God hear me? Is God real? All of those. So you go list those keywords. You link the ad to that sermon video page, not the home page. And so now people who are serving How Do I Pray, they might see your ad, and you could make that nationwide, right?
Yeah.
So now you can open up that to the whole country, because if your church is in Florida and someone in California finds it, we're cool with them watching that sermon video. That's fine. So we get a whole lot more traffic on what we call felt need pages. We'll write articles for our clients about parenting, biblical parenting, marriage, anxiety. Oh, you want to blow your grant up? Just go write 5 verses about anxiety, and then go create some ads about how to deal with anxiety, because everybody is Googling anxiety all day, every day.
Wow. So this, which, by the way, sorry, you're giving all the secret sauce. Nobody's going to hire you because you told everybody how to do it, right? No.
Well,
I don't know what your philosophy is. My philosophy is I will teach you everything you need to know, but everything I'm telling you is a ton of work. So if you really want to go do it, have fun. Otherwise, you can reach out, and in your case, you do this all day, every day. So you do it. What might take somebody, 8 hours to do, your team could knock out in an hour or two, right?
Yeah, it's kind of the 80-20 rule that I'll give anything away, because 80% of people are not going to do anything with it. The other 20%, I would say probably 10% of those will do it themselves and figure it out. And then the other 10% will call us or call some other church marketing agency and be like, yeah, I know this is important. I ain't got time for it. I don't want to learn anything new. How much is it? And then they'll hire us. So the more we give away, the more God blesses and sends work our way. And, we hire a lot of stay-at-home moms who get to stay home with their babies and then create social media content for churches. And so it's kind of our little, we get to minister to them and buy, they're buying diapers and baby formula with their paycheck, and they get to stay home, and we're helping churches.
No, that's awesome. So you mentioned that, you're making, you're managing these grants, but you also offer, like websites as another service. If somebody came to you and was like, hey, we already have a website in place, we don't want to pay you or anybody to manage our website, but we want you to do the grants. Like, how are you able to do that? Because a lot of what you're talking about is like, well, you got to have good website content. So how does that type of arrangement work for you?
Yeah. So a couple things. One, you've got to get your website. When you go to activate the grant, let's say, part A is getting approved as a nonprofit. Let's say you make it through that hoop. Now you submit your website to Google, and they're going to approve or deny you based on what they think about your website. And so we'll have a lot of people come to us and they want the grant. They don't already have the grant, and we can look at the website and be like, this will never get approved. So we've got a checklist of things here. You've either got to go do these things, or you need to hire us to do these things
Gotcha.
for you. You've got 27 words on your website. You got to go build some more pages. Everything links out to Planning Center. Go create a blog, go create a sermon library. So if you'll do that or get us to do it, then we'll be fine. As long as you will let us add content to your website that you approve. But one of the things that we do is we've also got a pre-built generic website with some articles that we've written and like this felt need content. And it's ready to deploy, and we'll just throw the church's logo on it, and we'll go ahead and launch it and connect it to their website. So it's kind of a miniature website under their website. And, and we drive ads to that, and it doesn't look quite as churchy, but there's a prayer request form on there, and those prayer request form link back to their church website. And there's a join a small group form or blurb on every page, and it links back to the main church website. So
Yeah.
we've had to get pretty creative with it
Yeah.
because churches' websites are typically pretty lean and thin.
Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense. So you have essentially a standby template site, more or less. And, maybe if church, do you just like make a subdomain like blog.examplechurch.com and brilliant.
Go.firstbaptist.com. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. So, yeah. And again, I feel like there's so many people. I feel like there's going to be pastors' churches in one of two camps. Either they've never heard of this, or they have heard of it, and and like you said, like I never considered that. Like, yeah, if you aren't optimizing these ads and your content the right way, you're barely even skimming the surface on how deep this or how much you can tap into this resource, I should say. So I mean, I'm just curious, what's your typical like quote unquote success rate, like in terms of maybe not click, because there's so many metrics you can look into, right? But like how much of that, because $10,000 a month that's a ton of money. It's like you said, like in my mind, I'm like, how could anybody even get close to that, but like where are you guys typically able to land in helping people maximize that grant? And I'm sure it varies to some degree, but if you could just ballpark it.
Yeah. Gotcha. So the first order of business for any grant is getting it to spend anything, anywhere. You've got to prime the pump. And this is why people who have Google Ads experience from a paid standpoint have a really hard time managing a grant. In fact, everybody I've ever hired who's good at managing paid ads for like a plumber, they're awful at the grant. And somebody who's really good at the grant will put your plumbing business out of business because the name of the game in paid ads is not wasting a dime and drilling down every little metric. Whereas with the grant, we've got to just get money to spend. And at first, we're not really concerned how we do it, because if Google doesn't see you spending some money somehow, some way, they're going to think you're doing a terrible job. And so the ads just stop. They just don't, you'll never spend. And so we feel like in those first 90 days, we have got to get above 6,000. That's the goal. And so what that means is we've got to get some
cumulatively or monthly.
We want to hit $6,000 by that third month, if at all possible.
I see. Yeah.
But that first month, you're probably not going to get over 1,000, and 6,000 is probably that's a goal. Don't always hit it, but you gotta start spending some money. You gotta prime the pump. And so what we've got to do is that's where sermon videos are great, because we can target nationally. You can target globally for all that, for that matter. But come join us Sunday morning. Well, that can only be, that's a 15, 20 mile radius probably. And there's not $10,000 worth of clicks. If everybody who was searching relevant phrases in a 15-mile radius clicked on your ads, you still wouldn't spend $10,000. And a good click-through rate is about 10%. And so you're only going to get 10% of the clicks that are there to be had. So there's no way, if you limit everything to a 15-mile radius, that you're going to spend very much. So you've got to do some things that can open up to the rest of the country.
Gotcha.
And minister to people just that are only going to know you online. But if you get creative with it, like we had this church in the middle of nowhere, Ohio, and small little Methodist church, sweet people, kind of going through a revitalization thing. They got a older pastor, but with more energy than I've seen in a long time. Great people. They weren't spending anything. First month we spent like 1,000. Second month, 2,500. They had this really good salvation page, like how to be saved, on their website. We're like, well, let's create some ads for that. There's probably nobody searching for how to be saved, but let's just see. We went from like $3,000 to $10,000 the next month. And most of that increase was people searching how to be saved, how to become a Christian. What is salvation? And so you just never know. I mean, we should have done the keyword research, and then we would have seen that a lot of people were searching how to be saved.
Sure, yeah.
But we were just kind of trying stuff, and didn't. We just didn't. We should have. So anybody who knows their stuff with Google Ads is listening to that, being like, "Wow, these guys are amateurs." But we were just trying stuff, and we just didn't do the research like we should have. But we found out that, man, there's a lot more people searching for salvation than we thought. So
yeah. Man, so much. Again, you have this has just been like a masterclass for me, because this is all stuff that again, you've probably taken my knowledge from like here to there, just by kind of overviewing some of this with me, because again, it's all stuff I've never really even, like I said, I just never even wanted to touch. I'm not saying I want to. It's not like you're incentivizing me to get into the business, but it is good to understand. And when it comes to just again, I make websites for people, so just some of these enhancing some of maybe the things that I'm doing or that I can encourage churches to do, super helpful, and I'm sure there's others as well. I want to circle back to kind of going back where we began with your story. You were a youth pastor, started this as a side hustle. And nowadays, it's, unless you're working at like a mega church, right? The chances of you working at a church, whether you're an assistant pastor or even a lead pastor, the chances of you making like a really, decent, call it living, maybe not because living wage is a broad term, but like something where you can not only like survive, but to some degree thrive, where you can invest, where you can save, where you can, put back money away for your kids and for your future and all that good stuff. That's becoming, I don't know, seemingly impossible. And so more and more, pastors or youth pastors, whatever, they're kind of finding themselves where you were at. It's like, hey, I got wife, kids, life to live, and there is always more month at the end of my money. And so, as we've talked before, I have kind of, my story's a little, and I won't share the whole thing with you. Similar to you, the only difference between you and me was I was working in ministry for about 4 years. I was full-time communications director at a large ministry, large church. They had a Christian school and a lot of, different things, programs going on. And I oversaw everything. And by media director, communications/media director, it would have been more appropriate if I was just called the media doer. I had to do it all. I was not given the budget to outsource or hire help or whatever. I was expected to do it all.
Those are our best clients at FaithWorks. We have so many communication directors that are like, yeah, I just pretty much have the newest computer, and that's why it's me. And so they're in charge of the website and graphics, and like they call us, just please take social media off my plate. So I know the U's out there.
Those guys, yeah. Well, I think you alluded to it earlier. Like, yeah, it's like if you have a Mac, then you must know everything about.
You can build a website, I'm sure.
Websites and graphics and whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was me. And the church there was good to me. I had a problem with saying no, though, and I had a problem with taking some of those frustrations to the leadership and saying I didn't want anybody to think that I wasn't capable, right? And so I had to prove myself. All that to say, it led to a burnout moment in my life, and so all of a sudden I find myself in a position where I'm quitting. I'm done. I completely cold turkey leave that job with nothing. Because I was so dedicated to the job before that moment that I was even refusing. I had people basically begging me to let them give me their money to build them websites and stuff. And I was saying, no, I have too much going on. And so all that to say, I just started all of a sudden. And, fast forward 9 years, here I am, only by the grace of God, and made all kinds of mistakes along the way. I'd love to tell you I had a beautiful marketing business plan to start, but I didn't. God was literally just good to me. And I put the right people in my life at the right time to allow this to be my full-time income since that day. So all that kind of to say, I wish that I would have had somebody or some guidance on how to, while I was still there, to first of all realize, hey, look, there's nothing wrong with, there's no shame in you saying, hey, I'm not making enough money here. I love what I do. I'm devoted. I'm called to this. But there's nothing wrong with saying, but I need to devote a little bit of my time and energy to bringing in some extra income. So first of all, I feel like there's that guilt aspect. And then, yeah, how do you do that? What do you do? Like you said, when you go to seminary, when you go to Bible college, not a lot of transferable skills there from the theology,
No.
So what can I do? So I guess what I'm saying is, there's got to be guys out there that are listening or watching this and they're feeling that. Like, what would you tell them? Again, I guess it's a super broad question, but like, what kind of guidance, what kind of encouragement could you give those guys that might be thinking about it, about doing something? Maybe, again, not maybe leaving and doing it full time, but just starting that side hustle.
Yeah. That's man. It's tough because you go into ministry because you're passionate about ministry and you're passionate about serving people and pointing them to Jesus. And so you don't want to devote time to anything else. And, I remember as a young youth pastor, before we had kids, we were having students over at our house, every night of the week, just about, and playing games, cooking, whatever, and then we were doing something just about every weekend. So I didn't want to have a side hustle, but then you start having kids and life changes. And it's like, and of course, when I started having kids was like right around the economic meltdown of 08. So all that was coming into play. So
you got a way of timing things just right,
man. So raises were frozen. There wasn't any kind of cost of living increases or anything for quite a while my babies were little. And so I kind of just didn't have a choice. I had to go figure something out. And I did some things. There was this company that they, the Clemson student newspaper is produced in the city I live in, an hour and a half away from Clemson. And so, but they would pay me like $150 to drive the newspapers up on a Thursday night. And so they would call me at like 10:30 when the papers were printed, and I would go pick up their newspaper van and drive them and drop them in some closet at Clemson. It was weird, but man, I needed $150, but I had to find something sustainable, something that I could get up a little bit earlier and do, that wasn't going to take me away from the kids. Something that I could do, later at night or get up early on Saturday, something like that. And for me, it was computer stuff. So I would say, you got to find something that's going to not just totally burn you out schedule wise. I mean, you got to have the capacity to do it.
Absolutely.
But I do think for ministers, especially lead pastors and ministry division leaders, you got to be a little bit entrepreneurial to survive in that. And I think ministry does prepare you to go out and do your own thing, because like for youth pastors, I mean, if you can convince teenagers to not stay at home and scroll TikTok, but instead come to this room, stand up and sing songs and listen to another lecture after you've been in school all day, then you can do sales and marketing.
Yeah.
You're good at that. And then you probably know something about the internet, and you are an early adopter typically, and you're a little bit cooler than the rest of the people your age just because you're around teenagers more. It's just like find something that you already know and get so good at it that people will pay you for it. But yes, it would have totally been nice to have somebody to show me how to do that, because man, I messed up so much. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't schedule it well. I procrastinated. There's more. And then so what started happening is I'm sitting there working on my Wednesday night youth message, and I got people calling me saying, hey, my website's down. And I'm like, oh crap. And so there was that pull. And then like I had Fridays off. So Friday was my big website building day and social media creating day. But I got students calling me while I'm building a website saying, hey, could we talk? My parents are getting a divorce. I'm like, oh crap. What do I do? So there was always that tension. And I don't know that I ever mastered balancing the side hustle with ministry. And so had I had somebody who knew what they were doing, that would have helped a lot for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And again, I just think everything you just said is a testament to, like, you know, I don't think I don't know. I just don't think the American, especially for us here in the States, I don't think American life is going to get more affordable anytime soon. I know people put their hopes in different presidents, administrations, government, but you know what? At the end of the day, I'm not really going to bank on them to make my life a lot cheaper, more affordable, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, and on the flip side, unfortunately, I don't foresee churches just all of a sudden being able to just pay you a ton of money, or not even a ton, a decent amount of money to, again, help you live comfortably and to plan ahead for a future. And so that's where, and I've heard somebody said this theory, maybe it's wild, I don't even remember where I heard it, but they said, I think the next generation of pastors and church leaders is going to be defined by bivocational work. And it kind of already is, because, I talk to so many pastors. I work with a lot of small to mid-sized churches. That's kind of already where they're at. Whether it's kind of taking them a while to accept it. Usually they arrive there out of necessity. They go, oh, I can't, again, life has happened. I have to go get a weekend job or a side job or something like that. And so all that to say, it's not really the future. It's kind of the present. It's where we're headed. But the beauty of it is, like, I love what you said, pastors especially, that you have an entrepreneurial kind of gene in you already, right? Like you've got a vision, you're a visionary. And so that can translate into a potential way to make income, and you can do it guilt-free, knowing that you're still giving your church and your people the time that they deserve and they need from you, while also being able to provide for yourself and your family.
Yeah.
And I just think that's again, super doable. So I don't know if you have any more. Yeah.
Well,
share your thoughts.
I was going to say, I mean, it all translates. I mean, you got to think, it's kind of like a Mr. Miyagi thing. You thought you were sanding the fence or painting the fence, but you're actually, learning to block. And I think so much translate. And if you can take one of those things, like, for example, you learn to lead, we had 15, 20 youth ministry volunteers, and you learn to get people to do things for free and give up time and lead small groups for free.
Yeah.
Well, imagine how good you're going to be at leading a group of people that you're actually giving money to, and they have to do what you say.
Yeah.
So, and you end up being, I think, a better boss when you've learned, when you get ingrained in your head that, like, you're working with volunteers, and they could be doing something else, you're a little bit kinder and more understanding towards people, which makes you pretty easy to work for, and people like that, So the thing that, again, youth ministry is my experience. So that skill that you have, that the teenager that walks in and doesn't know anyone and they're scared to death, and so they're reading the posters on the wall because nobody's talking to them. The ability that you learn as a youth pastor to go to them and make them feel comfortable and not nervous anymore is the same thing that on a sales call that puts someone at ease and comfortable and trusts you. Like, okay, I can trust this guy is not going to rip me off, and they're willing to work with you and hire you to do their marketing. And it's not a manipulation thing. Like, you just, I'm helping you trust me because I'm trustworthy,
Yeah.
So there's so many skills that I learned in ministry that prepared me for doing what I'm doing.
Yeah. Well, ministry is people work, and any job, side hustle you're going to pursue is going to involve people, whether it's people you're selling to, people that you hire to help you, work for you, whatever. It's going to involve people. And so, yeah, there are transferable skills. Like I said, we so often look at I just went to seminary and all I know is theology. That's okay. Well, you have the Holy Spirit in you too. So that helps. That helps you be a nice person, right? Somebody who's pleasant to work with. But yeah, so great thoughts on that. And I think there's so much there, and so much, again, potential. And here's something that I like to also, for those that are on the fence, if you will, about, because again, the number one kind of pushback I've heard is, well, I just want to be committed to my ministry, and I don't want to be distracted. And well, here's the thing: what if fast forward 5 years from now, you've built a nice little side hustle. You've never had to leave your church, but you've built a side, and maybe that becomes necessary. Maybe that just makes sense. I mean, Jono, that's what you did. That's what I did. There's different reasons where maybe that does. But what if, whatever the case is, let's just say that, 5 years from you starting a side hustle, you are in a position where, like, I make more there than I do here at the church. And what a freeing position for you to be in, to, be serving at your church, knowing, hey, like, I can serve here more freely without feeling the pressure of, like, you don't, the pressure, or maybe even a level of bitterness of, you guys don't pay me enough, whatever. Or you can even approach, in a situation where, you can approach a pastor or a church and say, look, I can serve, and I can work, and I can give more of my time, and I don't need you to worry about, making sure I have, enough money to, feed my whole family and save for retirement and blah, 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 because I've already got that in place. Like, that's a super freeing position to be in. And I feel like that could be the end, it's a beautiful, like, end goal vision and whatnot. There.
It also helps you. And this is, I don't know, this could be taken wrong.
We love some heresy here. Bring it on.
I found myself going with what I thought was right rather than what I thought was popular quite a bit more once I stopped fearing losing my job.
Yeah. Yeah.
There were some decisions I made in youth ministry about, for example, I stopped letting people take friends to summer camp, which sounds terrible. But what was happening was everybody was bringing this friend that had another youth group to our summer camp. And my goal for summer camp was that we would grow closer to Jesus and grow closer to each other. And what was happening is they're bringing this buddy from school that already had a youth group, and they were just isolating themselves with them. So I started saying, nobody, you can't bring a friend anymore. And you would have thought I denied the virgin birth, but
you did.
I wasn't scared, because I was like, no, this is right. I care more about these students than I do ticking off some people. So I'm going to do it. And I was just a little bit bolder, maybe too bold, when I stopped fearing losing my job, because I knew I could support myself either way. And so, it is free.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, so much more that, could be said about that. And I appreciate your kind of thoughts on it. And so I don't know, we're kind of almost to that hour mark. We've been chatting here. That's kind of what we've allotted. So this is kind of I think we said this is kind of like a crossover episode. This is going to post to, your podcast and YouTube. It's going to post over to the podcast, my podcast as well, and so forth. So as we round things out, maybe let's take this time to, like, share a little bit about, like, our actual, businesses, websites, podcasts, things like that, so that, our respective listeners know how to connect with us. So I'll give you the honor of going first.
Yeah, for sure. And one last thought I had, another side hustle. If you're listening to this and you're, like, looking for a side hustle, I think I didn't even mention this to you, Luke. We started a DJ and photo booth business for weddings and high school proms and stuff. So I have 6 DJs that work for me. You know who are great DJs at high school proms? Youth pastors.
Yeah, or worship pastors too. I mean,
worship pastors. They know their way around a sound system. They can set up a sound system. They've got personality because they've got to be engaging on stage, and they youth pastor typically knows current music, and a worship pastor would too. So I go looking for ministry guys who that's a perfect side hustle.
Exactly.
And so if you are a worship pastor or youth pastor in the Atlanta metro area looking for a DJ job, check out Medlin Entertainment. But anyway, as far as FaithWorks goes, FaithWorks Marketing. I'm the founder at FaithWorks, and we're a turnkey. Like we there's a lot of like do-it-yourself resources out there for ministries. We're a done for you. We do the Facebook ads. We don't teach you how to do the Facebook ads. We manage the Google Grant. We don't teach you how to do the Google Grant. We do have a course out there, but it's kind of just a 101 level. And so we don't build as many websites anymore. In fact, we've paused that just because we've just made some changes internally. So I would say, if you need a website, actually just go to Luke. But if
thank you.
Yeah. But you need your social media managed. We manage social media. We take that off churches' plates. So yeah, social media grant. That's really our sweet spot. And then we do SEO for churches as well, making sure that you're showing up in the Google, in the Google Map pack. A lot of churches don't really value that, but they should. The churches that do value it, 9 times out of 10, the pastor hasn't always been a pastor. They came out of the corporate world where they knew SEO is important. And now they're like, yeah, no, I want that for my church. So that's what we do. And yeah, you can learn more about that at faithworksmarketing.com. And, we'd love to talk to you and tell you more about the details and how that works and stuff like that. We're pretty affordable. And yeah, we just love the local church and my goal is, and it's like this in every city, you start Googling churches near me, and depending on where you are, you can get some pretty weird answers. You can get some pretty weird non-Jesus focused organizations. I'm not even going to call them churches, organizations showing up, especially the closer you get to like a downtown area or something. And so my goal is I want to make sure that the churches that love Jesus and teach the Bible are the ones that are showing up at the top of Google. They're the ones that are showing up all over social media. And so that's what we do. That's us.
Yeah, no, love that. And with that in mind, I have to commend, I spent some time kind of poking around your FaithWorks website there. And what I love about you is your book a call page. First of all, your video is, I don't know why, I feel like it's scripted super well. I may steal that script template from you. No, it's great. You put like a qualifier in there and like, hey, if you're not ready to work with us here and, come to our meeting ready to learn, like it's super good. So again, I might be stealing like the script template.
Do it. I'm sure I stole it from somebody.
Okay. Yeah. We have it on record. I'm allowed to, just totally plagiarize.
Nothing new under the sun.
But also, yeah, I noticed that on your website there. That is something that stuck out to me is here's the type of churches we like to work with. And you mentioned Bible teaching, gospel-centric, Jesus churches. And I love that because I would echo all of that. That's who I am looking to work with. And it's interesting. When we connected, I was like, I think the only crossover services that we have would be website. But then you mentioned, you're like, well, we're not really taking new websites at this time. So great. Hey, you could be in this perfect world where maybe there's somebody out there who's going to work with both of us at the same time. You never know.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so if you want to connect with me though, so I co-host a podcast called the Church Advance Podcast with my co-host, Pastor Brian Sams. He pastors a church in Jacksonville, Florida. So we have weekly episodes there, different conversations with guys like Jono, other pastors, and just kind of jumping into topics. So you can connect with us there. And then, that's on anywhere you listen to podcasts. And then I'm also the founder of increasecreative.co, where we kind of try to be a one-stop shop for all things creative for churches. Again, whereas Jono, you would focus on the marketing side of it, we focus on maybe the creative content side of it. Like, hey, we want to make you look good and make sure your website looks good, your graphics look good. That's more of what we focus in on. And lately, I've been doing a lot with helping churches and pastors produce podcasts as well. But probably the easiest way to connect with me is to head over to just my actual website, jlukeclayton.com. And if you want to know what the J stands for, I'm not going to tell you now. You got to go book a call with me. All right. That's going to be my incentive, if for nothing, no other reason, we book a call back. What's your first name?
It.
Yeah, totally
no
worth it.
No way they could ever guess what the J stands for.
No way.
I totally flubbed and didn't say that our podcast was called the Pro Church Marketing Podcast. So back to that. Yeah,
back to that.
Go listen to ours too if you're listening.
Speaking of great podcasts, yes. So check those out, and then connect with me. And something else that we spent a little bit of time talking about this idea of bivocational pastors and church leaders and whatnot. That's something that I am starting to help pastors with is grow or launch your side hustle and do it in a way that complements your ministry, that doesn't distract from it. And so again, that's a coaching program that I'm launching very soon. Started to work with a few select people here, just kind of as my test run, if you will. It's going really well. So if you're interested in kind of jumping in with that, again, all of this stuff, just jlukeclayton.com. That's where you can learn more about me. And Jono, this has been a super good conversation. I do feel like we could just keep going. But of course, we have businesses to run, families to tend to, stuff like that. But it sounds like we're going to have to do it again sometime.
But yeah, for sure, man. This was fun. And we could definitely, lots to talk about that I think we've, a couple similar paths-ish. And yeah, we could talk a good bit.
Okay, well, we'll do it again sometime. And but for now, it was good having you on, and I'll see you around.
Perfect.